Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates, presented by the Dallas Examiner. I'm Molly Finch Belt, publisher of the Dallas Examiner. The Dallas Examiner has presented Monday Night Politics for over 12 consecutive years prior to elections. The Dallas Examiner does not endorse candidates. We seek to inform the community so that when they go to the polls, they are informed voters. All candidates who provide their email addresses on their applications when they file for office are invited to participate in Monday Night Politics. Monday Night Politics is not a debate, it's a forum designed to inform the community about the candidates' qualifications, their platform, etc. We could not present Monday Night Politics without our sponsors, who are nonprofit organizations, and they do not endorse either. In addition to Monday Night Politics, our website, www.dallasexaminer.com, has a section for voter education. Here you'll find current information about voting. Visit www.dallasexaminer.com. I would be remiss if I didn't mention two people who have worked with Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates behind the scenes for over 12 years. The first person is Robin Jimenez, Vice President of Production and Editorial at the Dallas Examiner. The other person is Christy Thomas, Monday Night Politics Advisory Committee. We are happy tonight to have as our moderator Charles O'Neill. Charles is president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, and he was the first editor for the Dallas Examiner when the newspaper was founded by my father in 1986. Thank you for attending the forum tonight.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of Monday Night Politics, brought to you by the Dallas Examiner. Tonight we have an action-packed agenda as usual. We have races from the State House, State District 100 and District 113. I want you to know that we also had scheduled for tonight and got interrupted by some scheduling conflicts for the Attorney General's race for the state of Texas. We're working to work on a date that we can reschedule that very, very, very critical race. But also want you to know that tonight we're up on several platforms across the cyberspace, Facebook, YouTube, and one other one that I know of. But if you have questions, you can forward those questions to us and we'll direct those to the candidates as well. So tonight we have with us Mr. Daniel Davis Clayton, who is a candidate for District 100 here in the state representative, and also Mr. Vinton Jones, who are both here with us tonight. So we'll jump right in, if you don't mind, and Mr. Jones, you already have the mic, and you can pass it. We'll open with 2 minutes for an opening statement, and pass the mic to Mr. Clayton, and he can go for that. Okay. On the tape there. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone being here this evening and everyone online. My name is Vinton Jones, and I'm running to be the state representative for House District 100 because it is time for a new generation of Native leaders to lead and represent minority populations and other marginalized communities in Austin right now. I am running because there are 200,000 residents in House District 100, and of those 200,000, 160,000, or 80%, are people of color. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, gentrification, an attack on our health care, our civil rights, it is time for someone to step up and continue to lead. In this election right now for House District 100, this race is very important because the next person in this seat will be the fourth state representative to serve House District 100 in the last 5 years. During that time, we've had so many things that have happened that have needed consistent and steady leadership. I've been that leader who has worked on behalf of House District 100 for the last 38 years of my life as of today on my birthday. And I will continue that work in House District 100, impacting public policy, bringing our communities together, and continuing to build bridges where we didn't see build bridges before. So I'm so excited for this opportunity to answer questions, to also show the support that this campaign has from such leaders as John Wally Price, Commissioner Elber Garcia, a number of city council leaders, and other leaders that represent right here in House District 100. I am the only candidate with the most endorsements from leaders actually working on behalf of House District 100, and I'm so honored to have that support, and I look forward to this dialogue this evening.
Very good. And you said today was your birthday.
Today is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank
sir.
you so much.
All right, to Mr. Clayton.
You got one?
I'll note that we are joined by Mr. Marquise Hawkins, who is also a candidate for that seat as well. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Davis Clayton, and I want to tell you a little bit about my story. When I was in middle school, doctors told me that I could either fuse every single bone in each foot together or have an experimental surgery. And I chose the experimental surgery. After 3 years, multiple surgeries, and a lot of rehab, I learned how to walk again. I kept walking in my neighborhood of Buckner Terrace, where I was a 10-year homeowner and the precinct chair. I kept walking in Pleasant Grove, where just a few months ago I preached my first sermon. I kept walking in South Dallas, where I moved, and I've been living for the past 7 years, and I was pulled over by state troopers, just like all the other residents in that community. And I ended up working with the state troopers to stop over policing, and also working with the local police officers to maintain safe streets. I kept walking. I walked in West Dallas, knocking on doors for affordable health care, where after 2 years, I was responsible, me and my team, for over 400,000 North Texans signing up for the Affordable Care Act, many getting health care for the first time. And I kept walking until I reached the state capitol, where I worked for 7 years for State Senator Royce West and for 5 years for Representative Tony Rose, working on bills like the maternal mortality bill, where we were able to get women health care coverage and extend it from 2 months to 6 months just this year. And also we worked to get enough money for a new state hospital, mental health, here in Dallas that will be built in the next 3 years. Now I'm running. I'm running to expand Medicare. I'm running to stop the pipeline to prison. I'm running to fix the grid. I'm running to end, and I'm going to say this, I'm running to end cash bail in Texas. And so I look forward to talking to y'all tonight. And I've done all that work, I've done all that walking, and now I'm running for the people who live in the district every single day that are facing all kinds of struggles. And we've got to have someone with leadership that's worked in the community to help solve those issues. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Hawkins.
You want to bleach it?
Thank you so much, Daniel. Good evening. Good evening. I first want to thank Ms. Belt and the host of organizations who've put this forum on and continue this great tradition. I really appreciate the opportunity to express all of the issues that I care about and the issues that I'm hearing at the door, and also to share the stage with my friends here. My name is Marquise Hawkins, and I'm asking for your vote to become the next state representative in House District 100. I was born to a mother who was strong enough to raise me by herself. She instilled in me the values of hard work and perseverance, but above all, a belief that while success is not guaranteed in our state or in our nation, and that you only see fair in the dictionary, opportunity should be available to everybody. I was able to punch my own ticket. I got scholarships to go to Morehouse College and to Cornell University, but that wasn't enough work for me. I wanted to come back home to Texas to be a public school teacher. And I instilled in my kids the values that my mom instilled in me. I wanted to build them up so high that when they go out into the world, no one could tear them down. I would tell them that they had the power inside of them to change their entire lives, their surroundings. And I think that that's something we can do here in House District 100 as well. As I knock the doors and talk with people about this race, people ask me, why did I decide to get in this thing? And the answer for me is very simple. I'm sick and tired of not having the answer for my neighbor who's lived in Oak Cliff for 30 years and is threatened by his house being taken away from him because of the rising property taxes. I'm fed up and concerned that students I've mentored at South Oak Cliff High School say they can't even afford basic rent for where they grew up. I'm fed up with the idea that there are kids that I've seen now at Edna Road over in Buckner Terrace who say, you know, in their own way, I know that there are educational inequities that exist, and why is it that I have to face the brunt of that? I'm in this race for all of those folks. I decided to get in this race because it's our time to change that narrative. And it doesn't take 100 years to do this. It just takes a person with political will and political courage. I spent my entire adult life advocating for people who are caught on the lowest rung of the economic ladder for no fault of their own. And I'm asking for you to vote for me in this election because I want to amplify those people's voices, and yours too. Because when Austin starts to look and sound like us, just like Dr. King said, there's no stopping point short of victory. I'm asking for your vote in House District 100 because I know that I'm going to be able to fight for you on day one. I look forward to your questions, Mr. O'Neill and others, and I hope that I can earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Pass that to him. Well, you all have laid out fairly ambitious plans, if you will. Given the current climate in our state government, how do you realistically expect to accomplish what it is that you set out for your constituents?
Absolutely. So one thing that I'm honored to have is the endorsement of former state representative for House District 100, Terry Hodge. And I'm so proud of that endorsement because I am motivated and inspired by the work and her legacy in House District 100 because she was about the constituents. She was about doing the work to find out what was going on with the people. And so to your question, what can be done right now when we don't have control of our legislative body? It's about building community right now. It's about a long-term strategy. And what I am speaking about is something that no one else is talking about right now. And that's having someone that's going to be in this position for the long term, because we can't get done what needs to get done in the next 2 years. We have to be talking about a 4-year strategy, a 6-year strategy, a 10-year strategy to actually get in this position and see the changes that we need to get done as we move the needle forward towards this conversation around turning Texas blue and getting control of these bodies that can move this legislation. So I think first and foremost, we must mobilize community. There's so much said about everybody outside of House District 100, but we need to talk about the people inside House District 100. House District 100 is still a place that does not have a district office right now. So if somebody wants to have a face-to-face meeting with their representative right now, they're not able to do that in the district. And right now, those are the voices we need to get so that people can understand and make the connection between the policy and the people. And when people see that, more people are going to get engaged, more people are going to vote, more people are going to tell their families to vote. And that's something that is so important to me because someone that's here, my grandmother, is here, Miss Jessie Parks. In addition to her sisters were raised in House District 100, and they told me the importance of getting out and getting something done in the community, even when you feel like those things are most...
For this last minute, though, Mr. Jones, I want you to address directly. I mean, I want you all to consider it as well when you answer. Given the virulent opposition to concerns of black people in our current legislature, how do you imagine to get that done? I understand that we got to have a long-term strategy,
Absolutely,
and intermediate strategy, but right now, these issues are
Absolutely.
before us.
But what's the most important thing right now is that we are mobilizing our voices right now. When we talk about black people, we are not talking to black folks about those issues. And so, to my point, it may sound simple, but that work is not being done in a place like House District 100. So first and foremost, our mobilization of our community. Next, our mobilization of our leadership, making sure that we're talking to each other. And that's why these endorsements were so important, because they represent former and current city council members, our constables, our state representatives, former and those actually not current state representative, but those who have served in these positions, and those are going to be the leaders that we need to be to bring together to talk about these issues, because we have to make sure we're having the conversation about West Dallas, about East Dallas, about Oak Cliff together, so that we can work on creating a strategy for those things. If not, we're not going to be able to get that necessary work done, because we're not in lockstep. And what will continue to be done is that people will continue to come in our community, divide our voices, and divide our votes. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
Very good. Thank you. No, Mr. Clayton, I'm sorry. Mr. Clayton.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we're talking about someone who can get the work done. Just this last legislative session, I worked on House Bill 133, which was the maternal mortality bill. Now, last session it was killed by the Republican Senate because it is essentially a Medicaid expansion bill, and so anything that looks like Medicaid expansion they killed. We were able to get that bill passed during the worst legislative session in the past 30 years for Democrats. We were able to get that bill passed. Why? Because we crossed the lines, we talked to our neighbors across the lines, and we knew that that people wanted to kill the bill, but it was important to highlight the lives of the women who were dying unnecessarily. 90% of all women who die within the first year of giving childbirth die unnecessarily because they don't have health insurance. And so we were able to extend health insurance and expand Medicaid in this narrow sliver from 60 days to 6 months. And we were able to get it done in the worst legislative session. We were also able to appropriate over $1 billion of the state budget, including getting the money for a state mental health hospital right here in Dallas County. It's the first time we've had one, to the tune of $345 million. That is work that I've done. That's work that I've done in some of the worst environments that, like we were talking about. And so all you have to do is look towards my history and the work that I've done. And I think that's the reason that just today, our campaign announced that we have over 100 endorsements across District 100, including State Senator Royce West, House Democratic Caucus Chair, State Representative Chris Turner, State Representative Joe Deschantel, and State Representative Terry Meza, including a host of folks who are local leaders. Thank you so much.
Very good. Hawkins.
Yeah, so just so I'm clear, the question was, what will we do to ensure that we get an agenda passed, particularly for the African American community in Dallas?
For your constituents
For
in
my
District
constituency.
100. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've already done. So professionally, I work in 14 state legislatures with a dynamic group of people who come from all different political parties in all areas of the country, from Montana all the way to Ohio. Every single state where the only airline headquartered in Dallas has a market, that's where I am, and I'm making sure in the state capitals, we're making sure that we have better outcomes for our workers and our airline and the airline industry. What I've done in all of those state legislatures, and if you know anything about the middle part of the country, it doesn't look too particularly blue. It's really red. In some of those states, we have to work with Democrats and Republicans to get things done. What I've been able to do in a state that's seemingly very, very deep red is get one attribute of what's a part of the Green New Deal passed in a state that everybody thinks is just a Republican state. An aspect where both Democrats and Republicans said, wait a minute, this happens to be in our best interest, and maybe we should actually consider this and look, instead of talking past each other, talk about how we can actually solve something for people for a change. One thing that I think in the next session that we can actually do something about is property taxes. That knows no political party. The issues of property taxes that I talked about in my opening are the same issues are happening in the collar counties around each one of our big cities. Republican legislators in all of those counties around Dallas, around Houston, around Austin, San Antonio, El Paso, they're also facing rising property taxes. And their Republican constituency is saying, you all better go to Austin and do something about this for us. What I'll do is work with folks across the aisle to make sure we get things actually done for people when we know that we can agree. I'm not going to compromise my values, though. My values are very simple. We have to always make sure we have people-centric public policy and making sure that we always are keeping people at the forefront of any kind of decisions that we're making. And so, as I said, for example, one thing that I'm going to do, I propose, is a circuit breaker. A circuit breaker is something for property taxes, where your property tax right now is completely aligned to how old you are. That's sort of an old way of thinking. Almost 25 states in the country don't align it that way anymore. We're one of the states that continues to. Instead of having property taxes aligned to how old you are, it should probably be aligned to how long you've owned your property. So for my neighbor I talked about at the beginning, he's owned his house for 30 years. So maybe we should say, you own your house, you've been here for a long time, doesn't matter what the situation is going on around your property taxes might need to be turned off. I don't necessarily know what that number is for Texas, but that's why when you send me to Austin, I'll make sure we figure that out for folks. And as I said, this is the same issue that people in Republican areas of our state are dealing with, as well as in city centers where Democrats are dominant.
Yeah, you can hand that off too. I really, really want to kind of harp on this partisan divide that exists in Austin, right? And while it's good, and I appreciate your comments about how you might work in a volatile situation, right? But if you'll excuse me, these folks are nuts down there, okay? And so all of the platitudes and nice warm words might not resonate the same way when you get in that chamber. Just about 2 weeks ago, Governor Abbott sent a letter to every agency head imploring them, directing them to not accept federal funds. In fact, he went further to say that if in fact they thought that it benefited their agency to go after federal funds, that they should send their application to him for his approval. And if he decided it was good, he would forward it on, because federal funds have too many strings on them. But it's our money. He's directing his state government to withhold or not pursue our tax dollars coming back to our state, right? So that imperils the $30+ billion in Build Back Better infrastructure, and $472 million was very close to what I would do for a living in state small business investment funds. $500 million in jeopardy because of this wild right-wing kind of thinking about how we approach our politics. Given that background, let's revisit that question. How do you think you'll really perform in this very highly charged partisan arena?
Well, my background has really prepared me for this. I work in healthcare, and particularly addressing the HIV/AIDS epidemic, which I'm also a person living with HIV. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about HIV has been an issue that is usually received bipartisan support. And you have either had to work with Republican leadership or their appointees to get the work done. So I've done that when we looked at the millions of dollars that are being poured into our communities right now to create and strategize plans to end HIV, not only in Dallas County, but across 48 other counties across this country. So I've already had that experience of being able to work with Republicans by building relationships, as it's already been mentioned. But to the point that you're making, people are not trying to build relationships right now. So when we're talking about the issues around healthcare, around voting, those are not necessarily the issues, especially those are the issues that are important to people in this room. To people in this community. Those are the issues we have to be talking about right now. So again, it's so critical right now as we talk about this moment that we talk about the importance of mobilizing communities and mobilizing our voices and our vote right now. I cannot say that enough, because there's nothing that can be done until we do the work of getting rid of that leadership, getting rid of Governor Abbott, stop sending him to Austin. And the only thing we can do is to continue to get these votes out. But what's also happened is that we have to have another election to pass to see the damage that has been done by the voter suppression legislation that's happened. So we don't even know how that's going to impact our vote. We got to see what's going to happen. We have to continue, but during that time and while we're working to change, to turn Texas blue, we have to mobilize. We have to mobilize, and we have to get people to understand, the average person, not the politicos in the room, not the people at the Democratic Party. We got to get people to understand the power of their votes right now, and people don't always make that connection, especially since we have so many of our seniors, the people that have come out to vote, rain, snow, sleet, COVID or shine, they've come out to vote, and we have to continue to instill that in a younger generation of individuals while still continuing to honor the work of our seniors, because that's going to be the key of changing this. And I wish I can say that it's something that's going to change in the next 2 years, but then I would be lying to you, and I don't want to do that. I want to do something different than what I have seen constantly come into my community and ask for our vote and ask for their support, because we've been disappointed time after time again, and something has to stop.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Clayton?
So we talked about Greg Abbott not wanting state agencies to accept federal dollars because of federal regulations. All right. There's a difference between somebody that wants to get things done for the people of Texas and someone that wants to impede the people of Texas. Federal funds are for the people so that we can change our situation, so that we can address. And let me tell you one thing that I'm very disappointed in. We need to put more money into the the state rent relief program. We need more money in that program, and those federal dollars can come down, and we could take it. But Greg Abbott doesn't want to do it because, it's got strings on it. He calls it strings, but I call it act right. Okay, and you need some act right. That's the reason that you need someone in Austin that's done the work before and has been effective in an adverse situation. I've been in Austin. I've gotten bills passed. I've worked on legislation. We've gotten money for all sorts of things. We fully funded the AIDS medication program this year to the tune of $36 million. That's work that I worked on. So bringing home the bacon is important. Bringing that mental health hospital means that we brought jobs to Dallas County. There's the Tri-City Hospital that's sitting empty on the edge of our district. We need to find money for that, and if you send me to Austin, I'm going to go and find money for that so that we can turn that into a medical facility and make it work for the people of Texas. I think, again, it's important that we look, because all of us can speak very well about the issues of the day, but the question becomes, who can actually go down there and get the job done? I'm from East Texas. Most of the legislators are rural legislators that are Republicans, and I know for a fact that hospitals are being shut down because we didn't expand Medicaid. Those are conversations that I can have because I can relate to them, and I already have the relationships to get things done and get things passed for the people of House District 100. Send me there to get the work done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah. So, Mr. O'Neill, you're right. The GOP is crazy right now, but they are crazy strategic. They know what it takes to get people ginned up about things that are not things that will really affect their lives, but instead are things that they know that'll cause people to hate more people, to get people emotionally involved in things. That's why Greg Abbott is doing those things, and that's why people across the state, across the country, in fact, are claiming these things and doing these things. I've had private conversations with Texas state legislators, and they don't necessarily, GOP ones, they don't necessarily agree with what the governor's saying. They want the money in East Texas and in West Texas from the federal government for Medicaid expansion. But they can't say these things out loud because they know they're going to get primaried. They know that they can't say those things out loud because they know that those are going to be unpopular opinions in a Republican Party that is so entrenched and so divisive. What I think would probably need to happen is that we have to stop talking past each other and also have authentic conversations about things that we can actually agree on. There are 2 Republican legislators who are pretty popular who told me in private conversations that if I get to Austin, one of the aspects of the voter rights bill that was gutted, that they absolutely disagree with, was having to do with online registration. 2 Republicans in the current state legislature, who are pretty popular around Dallas right now, said, I couldn't get my Trump folks registered fast enough to vote because we don't have an online voter registration system. And these are younger Republicans. And they're saying the establishment Republicans are the people ginning up all this stuff. We want online voter registration. That will help us get more Trump voters. This is the thing. They seem to be more strategic now, but I firmly believe the Democrats are smarter. Democrats are smarter in that if you give us that vehicle, we're going to engage more voters. We're going to have more young people registered to vote easily. We're going to have more people engaged in the political process. That's how I think that we get past this.
We'll stay there, and we'll start going in reverse order now. So this question is, we've heard a couple of times about energizing constituents, making them more engaged or getting them to be more engaged. Tell us how your candidacy is going to propel that kind of civic engagement. We know that even in state races, folk can go to Austin with 2,000 votes. You know, that's really crazy in a district with 200,000 citizens. You know, it doesn't make sense. I do get to spend some time in the Capitol during legislative sessions, and there are no black folk walking the halls. And that's how the pressure is applied. How is your candidacy going to energize a constituency that has, to this point, not been reflected in Austin?
Yeah. So I think I'll spend most of my 2 minutes talking about the people that I'm most impacting across District 100, and those are the high school students across our district. So for the last this is not something I've done just because I'm running for office. This is something I've done for the last 5 years, now technically 6 years, it's 2022. I've tried my best to register every single student at both at South Oak Cliff High School, Roosevelt High School, and Pinkston High School, not only because it's state law, but I also want them to be engaged. So for the last about 5 years, I've tried to make sure that I engaged each one of those students and told them what upcoming elections are happening, what priorities they should probably be thinking about as people entering the workforce or entering college, and tried to make sure that we even organized kids around issues. We did a letter writing campaign in the last legislative session, and we were able to send off several letters about the issues around trans sports. These issues, trans folks in sports, you know, this issue, I think that we oftentimes neglect the youngest folks in our society who are probably the most energetic and most like gung-ho and go-getter about trying to make change in their environments. And so for me, I'm going to really rely on the youngest people that I've decided to register and get involved. For me, that's where all the passion lies. And for me, I think that that's where the results also lie.
Okay, very good. Mr. Clayton.
Okay, thank you. So the question was about how we're going to engage the people who live in District 100. First of all, our campaign is committed to making sure that every single member of District 100 of that community can communicate with our campaign. That's the reason that we're the only campaign that's translated our website into Spanish. And if you go to my website, daniel4100.com, you can see a Spanish translation of every single page so that every single member of our community can interact with our office. I understand that that's one of the long-term problems that we've had in District 100, along with the fact that we haven't always had a district office open. Also, I think that the people of District 100 want to work with someone who's worked in every single part of the district. I live in South Dallas currently for 7 years. I worked on the state trooper issue, not because it was my job, it was because I live there, and I'm going to fight for the people there. I've worked in West Dallas making sure that people get signed up for health care. I left my job working for State Senator Royce West to make sure that we could sign people up for health care, and I did it for 2 years. I've worked in East Dallas. I'm a board member of the Ferguson Road Initiative. We just put in a new park on Holland Road. Please go out and visit it. That's in the district. I've been working in this district in every corner of this district with the people who live here. I just visited with Miss Betty Frank over in South Dallas. I've been knowing her for 13 years. We just had a conversation about the fact that she met me when my son was 3 years old, and he's 16 now. People are coming to our house every single day, knocking on her door, calling her, offering her cash money for her home. And the people that are selling they're flipping those homes and selling them for $200,000. That's the reason that I have a plan to freeze taxes for areas that are being gentrified. If we can freeze taxes for people who are veterans, for their widows, for the disabled, for people over 65, we can freeze taxes in neighborhoods that are being gentrified. I work on these issues because I live in the district, and the people of the district are important to me.
Very good.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
How will your candidacy propel or energize
Okay.
constituents?
And so I can tell you how it's already energized the constituents. I stand before you today as the only candidate that has not run for office before in House District 100 multiple times. And when I say that, that is no disrespect to anyone that's running for office. It's about the need to be able to get in and make a win for communities right now. And what's exciting, what excites people about that is that I'm actually born and raised in this community. And so not only have I worked as a business owner, I've worked as a realtor, I've worked for my grandmother, to do these things. I have been and I've seen I have been a part of a legacy of generations that have been raised in House District 100, in Oak Cliff, in West Dallas, in East Dallas. I have been a part of winning campaigns that have actually ran and won positions in House District 100. We talk about services, but where are these services happening? Where are these partnerships happening? They're not happening in House District 100, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be here today, because I am sick and tired of getting these promises about what you plan to do in House District 100, and the race is over and you disappear until it's time to run again. There are people that are sick and tired of being lied to about what they plan to do, and talk about what you plan and not actually making action. So with that, when we talk about excitement for this campaign, there is a need for people, homegrown people. We talk about being able to go and come back into our communities. I'm proud to say I went to Washington, D.C. and spent 10 years working on federal public policy. I've worked in the state of Texas working to address public policy impacting our healthcare, and have focused on that issue. And so in my last 30 seconds, I want to share something that my grandmother has told me, and I hope she doesn't laugh too loud. She's always told me that when I want something or when something is needed, you got to focus, you got to say your prayers, and you got to get somewhere and sit down. And so I want to get into this position and sit down because I have used my training as a leader in public health and public policy to prepare me for this day and to prepare me to serve on day one.
Okay, stay there, and we'll go to Mr. Hawkins next. Given what you just said, what is the one glaring, I'm not saying failure of past representatives, but the one glaring need the community that has not been addressed, and what will be your priority once elected?
As I ended with, stability. That has been the thing that is missing. I started this conversation with saying whoever is elected will be the 4th representative for House District 100 in 5 years. When this seat turns over every 2 years, we've had 5 people. So stability, however simplistic it may sound, is needed in a place like House District 100, where black and brown communities are being displaced out of their homes. When we talk about in Oak Cliff, you see people having to move further and further south just to be able to make ends meet right now. So those are the things that we need. We need someone who is going to actually open a district office, who is interested in serving as state representative for House District 100, not just being an elected official. Because one thing that is unique about this, and actually the only person who's actually been an elected official is actually not here. So we all are showing you our work that we have been able to do. But what I want to show you that's different and what's exciting about this race is that in my community, I'm fighting on behalf of my community. I'm fighting on behalf of a community that my grandmother fought for. I'm fighting for a community that hasn't had a voice and a chance in this conversation because so many outsiders, whether we talk about someone moving into a community or we talk about Republicans, so many outsiders come in and continue to take without pouring into communities. And like I said, I would not be here if people did not pour into me, if my family did not pour into me. And as a first generation college graduate, if mentors did not pour into me, if other leaders did not pour into me. And so with that, I think it's still so critical that we have this conversation right now about the mobilization of community, the mobilization of leadership, and then the mobilization and action around the message that we need to communicate as far as what do people want who are from here, who live here, and continue to grow and thrive and build families here. What do they need? And that's what we need to take to Austin. And that's what I'm proposing to do.
Very good. Mr. Hawkins, the one glaring thing that has not been accomplished, and what will you do in your most priority?
Yep, so I think that the most glaring thing is a district office. I think that we need to establish a district office that's bilingual, accessible to everybody across District 100. But along with that, Mr. O'Neill, is that I knock doors every single day. And one of the people that I talked to said that they had no intention of voting. He wasn't on my list. He was just a person who was fixing a car on one of the streets that I was walking on. He was fixing a car, and he said he has never voted in an election since he turned 18, and he's 26 years old now. He has no reason for which to vote. The glaring reason why we have abysmal voter participation, actually the worst voter participation of any city in the United States of America. 6% of people turn out and vote in Dallas. That's abysmal, and it's something that we should be like up in arms about why we're not engaging more people. That young man said, I have no reason to vote for you. I'm not going to vote in this election. I sat and talked to him against the better judgment of probably my campaign team for an hour, insisting that there's a reason why he needs to get involved. He went to Skyline and said he got a CTE credit or CET certification, and he was trying his best to get all kinds of access to things, and all kinds of roadblocks were in his way. That's where government and people in elected office are supposed to step in and do something for this young man. At the end of that conversation, he's one of those people that I took the other day. I took about over 50 applications for new voter registrations to the county office, and he's going to vote for me on March the 1st. These are the people that we absolutely need to start engaging. People need to see us visible, and they need to see government show up in their lives because they have no reason for which to participate.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Clayton.
I'm going to quote State Representative Toni Rose on this one. She likes to say that there's a difference between activity and productivity. There's a difference between activity and productivity. When people can't put food on the table, when the whole district is the entire district is a food desert. The entire district is a job desert. We need people who can get things done and who have stopped what they were doing to do the work in the district. I volunteered at my son's school for 10 years, every Friday, an entire hour. He kicked me out of his class. I used to read to his class. He kicked me out when he was in the 4th grade. Last year before COVID, the teacher told me that she was having trouble with the middle school boys. And I said, if I'm going to talk to them, you have to give them to me. I started a secondary program where I worked for an entire year, an hour a week, and created a social emotional learning program. People in the district want someone who's going to work, and not because somebody's paying them to do it or because they have to, because they want to work for the people. If you elect me, I'm going to work to put a social emotional learning program in every school and replace punishment in elementary and in middle school with social emotional learning. We know that when kids are acting out, it's because they're just doing what they learned, they're doing what they saw. But you have to work with the people in the district to know what the problems are. And so I think that this district needs someone who can get things done, who can get things passed. I'm a proven, battle-tested leader. And I'm also a listener. Our campaign, we're the only campaign that's doing this. We have a District 100 survey. Go to my website, daniel4100.com. Fill out the survey if you live in District 100. Let us know what's going on. We've had over 100 people fill out the survey. People telling us about the fact that they don't have heat in their home. We know it's about to get cold. We're working on that. We've got folks that have talked to us about being afraid of getting shot because we passed this bill where every single adult can carry a gun. Okay. Excuse me, my time is up.
Stay there, and you'll take this question, then hand off to Mr. Jones, and then to Mr. Hawkins. We talk about energizing constituents here in Dallas. Last session, there were 17 black folk in the House of 150, 2 in a Senate of 31. Rarely did all 17 agree, because one of them was a Republican, but rarely did all 17 agree, and oftentimes it's hard to get 2 people to disagree on stuff in the Senate. But how will your presence in the Texas Legislative Black Caucus begin to change that dynamic to make us work as a unified force in Austin?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you asking that question because you've been there.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen you there over the years. Yes. You're the only other person on this stage beside myself that I've seen in Austin, walking the halls, working with the Black Caucus. You know, I think what a lot of people misunderstand is that we are a few of many. Republicans outweigh all the Democrats put together, let alone the black Democrats. To pass something, you got to get it past the lieutenant governor. You got to get it past the governor. The governor can just simply veto your bill or not sign it, and it is dead. It doesn't matter if you passed it in both chambers. So we are facing huge obstacles. And that's the reason that I think I am best poised to serve the people of this district because I've been there. I understand how it works. I've worked on calendars. I've worked in appropriations. That's where all the money goes through. So I know how to get money for the district and bring jobs to the district. No one else on this stage can get that done, especially on day one. And I think that's the reason that I've been endorsed by over 100 people, most of them from District 100. You know, I'm the only person that's been endorsed by any state leadership that's a sitting state leader. And I've been endorsed by people in West Dallas, Oak Cliff. They're telling us where they live, and they're endorsing this campaign because they understand that they need someone who is passionate, who understands how to get it done, because this is a critical time. You know, we're all up here and we can sing a good story, but the question is, who can get the work done? And if you can't get it done in the legislature, if they block your bill, who is going to get their hands dirty in the district and do it anyway? You know, if we can't pass my social emotional program, we're going to do it anyway. Because I've already been doing it as a volunteer. I'm going to train other people to do it, and we're going to go to the schools. We're going to make sure that our kids don't be put on the pipeline to prison just because somebody wants our kids to go to jail.
How will your presence in the Texas Legislative Black Caucus be the unifying force that we need?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's very important that we have a state representative that's going to work with other Democratic leaders to build bridges. We need someone who's going to go in and going to work with those other leaders. We need someone who's going to be building those relationships, and also not only with the legislative body, but also, again, with the community and the people who are actually here, the elected officials that are actually literally here to make sure that we are in tune with the issues that are going on, because when people look at these maps, they don't see 100 and 114. They see Oak Cliff. They see West Dallas. They see East Dallas. They want and they need people who are going to get along with each other. And that's not always meaning you're going to get along on every issue, but that means something as simple as picking up the phone and calling people. And one thing that I can say as a constituent that has seen the people working in Austin is that that's not always happening. One side doesn't know what the other hand is doing, and that's something that has to stop. And so what I will do as a freshman state representative is build critical relationships with more senior leaders, some that are here tonight, and other leaders that have seen the work and continue to see and can also have value from fresh blood and fresh ideals that can come in and help our communities right now. Because what has to be most important is not, you know, how many endorsements that we can get or how much we can promise people. It's about delivering for people, and that can happen in so many different ways. And back to one of your previous questions about how to do that, what's unique about Dallas is that Dallas is under Democratic leadership. And so when we talk about those leaders, those city council people, those constables, those state representatives who continue to serve in the community, those are the people that we need to be working with, because they're going to mobilize the voices of the people and have a representation that's bigger than yourself. What's so critical about this race is that it's not about who's going to win this race. It's about, do you honor the conversation that this work must be and cannot move forward unless it's bigger than the person that's standing right here. It's about the community and it's about serving them, and diversity just can't be helping Black and Latino communities. We have to do both, but there's diversity within the Black community. There's economic diversity that we have to talk about, and that's what I want to do.
All right.
Yeah, so you didn't see me in Austin because it was from the onset that you might not have seen me rather in Austin, because from the onset, it was clear that people were going to choose politics over people, and we couldn't get anything done. So we went to other states where people were actually willing to work together and say, well, look, we can actually solve issues for people. And also, I would mention that, you know, instead of being in Austin most of that time, I was actually here in Dallas. So what you're going to actually hear about very shortly is that I was working with local leaders to establish a flight school that's going to open at Pinkston High School as an extension that are trained Southwest Airlines pilots that are going to be able to have a pipeline over to Southwest Airlines, because we're going to have a pilot shortage in the next 20 years. So when you talk about getting work done, you don't have to be in elected office to get any work done. All you have to do is actually have the interest and the motivation to actually get stuff done on the ground for people. And so when people in Austin were arguing about politics over all kinds of things, voting rights bills and everything else, I was actually trying to get CTE things done for our kids in West Dallas so that they have opportunities after college. A good paying job where pilots make almost $400,000 a year at most airlines. And so that's what I was doing instead of arguing in Austin. Instead, I also was meeting with other legislators and getting better ideas that we can bring back home to Texas, like a circuit breaker, like environmental regulations that Republican and Democrats believe in and pass in other states that we can actually do here. And so that's where that's my presence in the Black Caucus was the question. I'm a listener. I have all intentions to go to Austin and listen. I want to be an observer and sit back and listen. And then at a point when I know that my contributions will be greatest impactful, I know that I'll make sure that I can bring people's ideas, that whether they're divergent or not, bring those ideas together into one to make sure we have solutions for people.
Very good. Stay right there, and we've reached that point in our program. Thank you for your spirited conversation so far. 2-minute closing statement, right? And you'll go to Mr. Clayton first and end with Mr. Jones.
Perfect.
Okay. 2 minutes. You.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say.
You start with you
Thanks.
and then to him.
Perfect. Again, I want to thank Ms. Belden, also you, Mr. O'Neill, for this forum, and also my friends on the stage. So I'll close with this. I think we have a fighter right now in the House District 100 seat, and that person has decided to leave the ring to pursue other opportunities. I'm asking you to tap me in. Tap me in to be that fighter for you, because I've already done it all my adult life. And my name doesn't need to appear in lights. I don't need all the likes on Facebook. I do the work because it matters for the people who the work is done for. That's why I'm in this thing. I want to make sure we have better outcomes for people across House District 100, and that's why I'm in this race. You know, if you're voting for Mr. Jones because of his policy bona fides, I'll submit to you I have that. As the first black editor of the Cornell Policy Review, and then I continued that policy strength all the way up to last year, where I helped my current school board trustee pass a new policy at Dallas ISD for executive directors, or how you select an executive director. If you're voting for Mr. Clayton because of his legislative background, I submit that while I don't have as long of a track record as him, I do have as deep experiences as him, making sure we get good bills passed and kill bad ones across legislatures across this entire country. If you're going to vote for Ms. Crenshaw because of her grassroots nature, I'm submitting to you that that's me. I'm the unique person who has all three of the key attributes of all of the folks who are in this race. I'm asking for you to vote for me because I am prepared on day one to be that advocate for you in Austin, and to, as I said at the top of this, to advocate for the muted voices of our entire district. That's why I'm in this race, and that's why I'm asking you to vote for Marquise Hawkins on March the 1st. Hawkins for Texas 100 is our website. I've got a video up there and our issues on there, and I would love to talk with you more about anything, and just drop me a message on there, but I'm hoping that I can earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clayton?
Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for having us for this discussion. We've had folks stand on this stage and say that we can't get anything done in Austin, with someone standing on the stage that's gotten things done in the worst environment in Austin. I've gotten things done. You ask the women who have been in the families who have lost mothers, lost sisters, lost daughters, who have died because they did not have the health care they needed because Texas won't expand Medicaid. You ask them if I haven't gotten anything done or if we can't get anything done in Austin. You're talking to someone that can get things done in the worst situations because I'm a strategist, I've worked in the environment, and I work on the ground every single day in our communities. I'm the only person in this stage that's worked to stop gun violence in South Dallas. I'm the only person on this stage that's signed folks up for health care many times for the first time in their life, for health care for them and their family. I'm the only person on this stage that started a social emotional learning program for kids. Why? Because it was necessary. Because it was necessary. It's necessary that we have someone in House District 100 that can get the job done. It's okay to talk about theories. It's okay to talk about what's happening in other states. We need someone who knows what's happening in Texas. We need someone who knows what's happening on the ground in our communities. We need someone who's willing to put together a survey to ask those questions and to take that information and then to act on it. I'm a person that has acted on it all my life. I'm not up here for being in the lights. I'm up here to do the work, and I've always been there to do the work. Please, again, that's the reason that there's been over 100 people, most of them in District 100, that have endorsed my campaign. Please go to my website, daniel4100.com. Please fill out the survey so that we know what's going on in your household, in your community, and we can take those issues to Austin. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Grandmama, I'm quoting you again. Charity starts at home. Lorraine Barabille, Terry Hodge, Omar Narvaez, Carolyn King Arnold, Adam Bazadua, Jesse Moreno, Michael Orozco, Stonewall Democrats of Dallas, the Victory Fund. These are all leaders in House District 100 that have put their names on this campaign. A lot of people can say a lot of things, but say their names of the people that are here doing the work. And like I said, if the work was being done in a way, there would even be a conversation about me being on this stage running for this office, because my background is in public health. I worked and have worked with Dallas County Health and Human Services to move millions of dollars of funding to make sure it was addressing HIV. I worked with community leaders when we weren't saying anything about public health before the COVID-19 pandemic, and made sure that community leaders were not only talking about potholes, were not only talking about education, they were talking about the health of our people. Because the thing is, there is no home ownership if you are not healthy. There is no safe schools if people can't go to school without becoming sick. And so these issues, when we talk about healthcare, they intersect with each and every issue that I am coming to the table to address. Our healthcare, our infrastructure, our right to vote, and our right to resources that are owed to us, whether we talk about that's supposed to be coming down the federal pipeline, the state pipeline, or even just local resources. There is a blockage in that pipeline for Black and brown people right now. And we have to unclog that blockage. And I am asking you today for your support to be able to go to Austin to get that work done and give me a chance, someone who is from this community and has no other desire but to serve the people who raised me and who made me possible so that I can do that for another generation. So again, I ask for your support. Please visit my website at www.vinton4100.com. You can visit me on Facebook because that's important right now, because we are social distancing right now and we can't have a full room full of people like we usually do. So we have to use social media to connect with people right now. Use that to connect with the constituencies so you can continue to hear about those issues, and in whatever leadership capacity that you do, take action and make things happen. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much to the 3 of the 4 candidates, Democratic candidates for District 100, Mr. Daniel Davis Clayton, Mr. Vincent C. Jones, and Mr. Marquise Hawkins. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. Thank you. We'll be back with you shortly with candidates for State Representative District 113. Thank you.